Welcome to the Meditation Nest, bedtime stories for adults. I'm Beth Buttram, your host and narrator. Here, stories become gentle meditations, designed to help your thoughts unwind as you slow the tempo of your life and embrace the night ahead. I invite you to slow your breath, soften your thoughts, and find peace as you drift into rest. This is your time to rest, reflect, and dream. In tonight's episode, I'm bringing you a story called The Stone Singer. It is a tale about resilience, not the loud, heroic kind, but the quiet kind that grows slowly. The kind that rebuilds us from the inside out. It follows a woman whose voice awakens something ancient within the mountains, and who learns that strength isn't about holding everything together, but about allowing herself to be reshaped with patience and care. As you listen, may you feel yourself unwinding, resting, and remembering your own steady, enduring strength, the kind that never really leaves you. So settle in, let your breath fall into a slower rhythm, let your jaw and your shoulders relax. There is nothing to fix, nothing to solve right now. Just a story to keep you company as you drift toward rest. And with that, I will begin the tale of the Stone Singer. The village of Moonvale rested in a valley carved long ago by glacial rivers, its ancient cobblestone lanes winding like solid earth-toned threads between cottages roofed in slate. Surrounding it on all sides were the evergreen mountains, a great sweeping range of pine, stone, and shadow, always watching, always whispering their ancient songs. Some said the mountains could hear those who called to them with honest hearts. Others said that was only a myth. But the villagers still spoke of it in that quiet, reverent way reserved for things that might be true. Among the people of Moonvale lived a woman named Melanie. Melanie had once been known for her voice, a voice so warm and clear it could silence arguments in the tavern, calm restless children, or bring elders to tears without quite knowing why. She used to sing every evening at the edge of the valley, filling the dusk with notes that clung to the air like streams of golden mist. But that was before everything changed. Months earlier, a sudden rock slide had torn through the northern ridge, taking with it one of the village's oldest gathering halls and shaking the valley to its roots. No one was lost, but the fear lingered, and the dust settled into people's memories in a way that felt permanent. Melanie had been nearby when the first stones fell. She had heard the earth fracture, felt the wind shift, and tasted fear like iron on her tongue. In the aftermath, her voice, once steady and sure, trembled when she tried to sing. Sometimes it vanished altogether. She told no one, hoping it would return on its own. but each attempt ended in quiet frustration. And so she stopped singing. Melanie filled her days with small tasks, helping at the market, tending the tiny garden behind her cottage, walking the narrow trails that ran along the river. She still smiled, still laughed softly with neighbors, still carried on with gentle kindness, but something inside her had gone quiet. Most evenings, she wandered to the foot of the mountains, tracing the worn stones of the old path leading upward. She had walked this trail countless times, but now she only touched its beginning, as if she were greeting a friend she didn't quite know how to visit anymore. The mountains seemed to sense her hesitation. Their presence shifted around her, still, patient, listening. The villagers sometimes noticed her lingering there and would call out, "Melanie, sing us something." She would smile, wave them off, and change the subject. But the mountains remembered her voice, the voice that once warmed the stones themselves, and they were waiting. On an early autumn morning, when the air carried the faint scent of frost, Melanie woke before sunrise. Something inside her felt unsettled, not in a painful way, but in a way that felt like being nudged gently towards something she had been avoiding. Her cottage was small, but filled with soft things: woven blankets, carved wooden trinkets, little clay bowls she'd collected over the years. She sat on the edge of her bed and let the early light paint pale gold across the floorboards. She felt restless, tender, open. Without fully deciding to, she dressed warmly, gathered her shawl, and stepped outside. The world was still blue with morning. A thin mist drifted across the valley. The mountains rose in quiet silhouette, their peaks catching the first blush of dawn. She walked. Her feet knew where to go before her mind did. Soon she reached the beginning of the old mountain trail, the same place she paused so many evenings, never crossing its threshold. But today, she stepped forward. The path rose gently, lined with scattered stones that glimmered faintly with dew. As she climbed, the silence grew deeper, but not empty. It felt alive, shaped by the hum of the earth beneath her. Halfway up the trail, she paused by a large boulder flecked with quartz. A tiny fissure ran across its surface, catching the light, and then she heard it. A sound so faint she wondered if she imagined it. A low hum, steady, soft, like the echo of a voice that had traveled a great distance. Her breath caught. She stepped closer. The sound grew clearer, resonating through the stone like a memory. Melanie placed her palm against it, warm, alive, listening. She didn't speak, not yet, but her heart answered. The hum faded slowly. The moment passed like a sigh. Melanie stood there, trembling with something that wasn't fear, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. She returned the next morning, and the next. Each day the stone hummed to greet her, sometimes faint, sometimes strong, sometimes like a vibration she felt only in her bones. She began to sense a pattern in it, a rhythm that changed with the shifting of the sun and the cooling of the air. The mountain was speaking its own ancient language. One afternoon, the hum grew clearer, forming a cadence that reminded her of the opening notes of an old lullaby she once sang as a child. Melanie froze. The melody unfurled in her mind like a vine reaching for light. Her lips parted without meaning to, but no sound came. Still, the stone hummed, coaxing, inviting, waiting. She stepped back, overwhelmed, but the next day she returned again. For weeks, this continued, the mountain humming, Melanie listening. She began to understand its silences as much as its sounds. The stone never demanded anything of her. It simply offered presence. Slowly, the fear that lived in her chest began to loosen. Slowly, the tightness in her throat began to soften. And one evening, a quiet, cool evening washed in lavender dusk, Melanie felt something she had almost forgotten. She wanted to sing. The next morning, she climbed the trail with a trembling resolve. The stone sat exactly as it always had, solid, steady, flecked with pale quartz that caught the sun. As she approached, it hummed gently, as though greeting an old friend. Melanie took a deep breath. She pressed her palm to its surface. Closing her eyes, she allowed her breath to expand into her chest, touching the familiar shape of a note that had lived dormant within her for months. She exhaled, and then, barely, softly, she sang. The sound was fragile, wispy, a single thread of voice. But the stone caught it, amplified it, wrapped it in warmth, and sent it back to her like an echo shaped in gratitude. Tears slipped down Melanie's cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. She sang again and again, each note steadier than the last, each breath easier than the one before. The mountain hummed with her, not louder, not guiding, simply accompanying. When she finally stopped, she felt emptied, not in the sense of depletion, but in the sense of release. Something that had been stuck inside her was finally moving again. She whispered, "Thank you." The stone hummed once softly and then grew quiet. Melanie rested her forehead against its surface and closed her eyes. She had found her voice again, not the voice she once had, but a new one, a quieter one, a true one. Words of her daily climb spread quietly through Moonvale. Villagers noticed her softer smile, the ease in her steps, the way she hummed gently to herself as she worked in the market. But she told no one about the stone. Some things were meant to be kept between a heart and the earth that healed it. One crisp morning, heavy clouds rolled across the sky, and a cold fog clung to the slopes. Melanie hesitated at the base of the path. The world felt different, muted, uncertain. Still, she climbed. When she reached the stone, it was silent, completely silent. Her chest tightened. Had she imagined everything? Had it all been nothing more than her hopeful mind trying to mend itself? She touched that stone. Nothing. She whispered, "Are you still there?" The mountain gave no answer. Minutes passed, then an hour. Fear crept back in, not the fear of falling rocks or shifting ridges, but the older fear she had carried for months, the fear of losing her voice again, of losing the fragile progress she had made. The fog thickened around her. The world felt small. She turned to leave, and then a deep, resonant hum surged through the ground, rising like a tide. The stone vibrated under her fingertips, and the fog pulsed with shimmering light as if illuminated from within. Melanie stumbled back. The mountain was waking, not in anger, not in warning, but in recognition. The hum spread outward, echoing through neighboring stones, traveling up the ridge, rolling beneath the earth like a buried song resurfacing. It was overwhelming, ancient, powerful, endless. Melanie felt the sound, not just in her ears, but in her lungs, her ribs, her pulse. It shook loose every tightly held breath she had ever swallowed. The mountain was singing, and it was singing with her. Instinctively, she lifted her face to the sky and opened her mouth. Her voice rose, stronger than before, clearer, anchored. She sang into the fog, into the humming stone, into the awakening ridge. She sang for the part of herself she thought she'd lost. She sang for the fear she had carried, and for the resilience that had grown quietly beneath it. The mountain answered, not with words, but with a song that wrapped around her like warm wind. And when the fog thinned at last, the stone quieted. But Melanie didn't feel abandoned. She felt held. Winter came early to Moonvale. Snow swept across the mountains, softening their sharp edges and turning the valley into a quiet world of white and silver. Melanie continued her walks, though the trail grew slippery and the wind bit at her cheeks. The stone still hummed for her, sometimes barely audible, sometimes as deep as thunder, but its voice felt changed. The mountain seemed content, settled. One day, Melanie climbed the trail carrying a small wooden flute she had carved years earlier. She hadn't played it in a long time, but her hands remembered its shape. She sat beside the stone and played a simple, gentle melody, one that twined with the mountain's hum like two threads weaving a single tapestry. The wind carried the notes through frost-tipped pines. Birds paused. The snow itself seemed to listen. Melanie wasn't trying to perform. She wasn't trying to reclaim anything. She was simply sharing, and that was enough. As winter deepened, something beautiful happened in the village. People walking past Melanie's cottage late in the evening began hearing soft singing inside. Not the confident voice she once had, but a warm, steady one that seemed to glow from within. At the market, children tugged at her cloak, asking, "Sing the morning song." She would hum a few bars, smiling softly. And the villagers would say, "Melanie has returned." But she knew better. She hadn't returned to who she was. She had become someone new, someone shaped gently by fear and softened by resilience. The mountains had changed her voice, not by giving her something she lacked, but by releasing the strength that had been waiting inside her all along. In early spring, the snow melted into silver streams that ran down the mountain slopes, feeding the valley below. The air warmed, carrying the scent of pine and thawing soil. Melanie climbed the trail one final time before the season shifted completely. The stone waited, glowing faintly with scattered quartz. She placed her hand upon it. It hummed, soft, steady, familiar. "I'm leaving the valley for a while," she whispered. "I think it's time." The stone asked for nothing. It simply listened. Melanie took out a small object wrapped in cloth. She laid it gently at the base of the stone. It was her wooden flute. "Keep this for me," she said, "or keep it for someone who needs it." The stone hummed once, low and warm. Melanie closed her eyes and let a final note slip from her lips. The mountain caught it, held it, returned it. And then she stepped away, not out of loss, not out of fear, but out of knowing she was finally ready to trust her voice in the wider world again. The mountain had given her what she needed, not healing, not answers, but space. The space to reshape herself, the space to soften, the space to grow resilient in her own time. The end. The Stone Singer reminds us that resilience is not built all at once. It's shaped slowly, the way mountains are shaped by wind and time. It lives in us even when we feel quiet or broken or unsure. Like Melanie, we don't have to force ourselves to bounce back or to be strong before we're ready. Resilience is patient. It waits for us, and when we finally hear it humming beneath the surface of our lives, we can learn to rise again with gentleness and grace. If you are enjoying these stories, I encourage you to also listen to affirmations and micro-meditations. This is a complimentary mindfulness podcast designed to meet you where you are. Each episode is under 5 minutes in length, offering a soft landing in your day. Whether you're navigating stress, seeking a spark of encouragement, or just craving a moment of stillness, these bite-sized reflections are here to support you. You can find a link in the show notes. Wherever you are tonight, may you feel the steady presence of your own inner strength, soft as snowfall, patient as stone, and always ready to guide you home to yourself. Good night. As this episode comes to a gentle close, and the world outside grows quiet, may you find comfort within your own meditation nest. Let your mind settle softly. May tranquility wrap around you, inviting deep rest and serene dreams until dawn. If you'd like to help keep the meditation nest aglow, please consider buying me a cup of coffee by visiting ko-fi.com/BethPodcast. Every small kindness helps the light travel a little further. You can also access a free weekly blog on substack.com. Check the show notes for links. Until we meet again, rest in the quiet knowing that you are safely held by the night.